Hello, powerful Scorpio. As you move through August 11 and 12, something quieter than a dramatic turning point may be asking for your attention. You may sense that a familiar pattern, habit, or attachment no longer fits the person you are becoming, even if part of you is still reluctant to admit it. There is no need to force an answer. Simply notice what has begun to feel different beneath the surface. Because sometimes transformation starts as a feeling long before it becomes visible in your life. You may find yourself encountering new perspectives in places you did not expect, perhaps through a conversation, an unexpected connection, or a moment at work that makes you reconsider an assumption you have carried for too long. Your instincts may become especially noticeable when they quietly tell you that continuing in the same direction would only keep you tied to an older version of yourself. This is less about rushing towards something new and more about recognizing what deserves your energy now, while allowing outdated beliefs and emotional patterns to loosen their grip. The more honestly you listen to yourself, the easier it becomes to distinguish genuine intuition from the fear of losing control. There can also be value in choosing your connections carefully during this period. The right people may challenge the way you see a situation without asking you to abandon your own judgment. And an ordinary conversation could reveal an idea you had overlooked or help you see a familiar problem from a completely different angle. For you, meaningful connection does not have to mean revealing everything at once. Sometimes it means being around people with whom you can lower your defenses without feeling that you have surrendered your boundaries. Let those exchanges remind you that protecting your inner world and allowing yourself to be supported can exist side by side. At the same time, this is a moment to pay attention to what genuinely restores you. Notice which experiences leave you feeling more grounded and which ones quietly drain you, even when you have become accustomed to carrying them. Your well-being may require more than simply resting. It may ask you to stop giving emotional energy to situations you have been trying to manage, repair, or understand long after they stopped being yours to carry. There is strength in recognizing the difference between loyalty and attachment, between patience and postponing a truth you already understand. Across August 11 and 12, let your inner drive become more deliberate rather than more forceful. A setback does not have to mean that you are being pushed backward. Sometimes it exposes where your energy has been tied up, showing you what needs to be released before you can move with greater clarity. Pay attention to the small changes in your emotional landscape, especially the feeling that remains after a conversation, the silence that follows an encounter, or the sudden sense that something simply no longer feels right. These subtle responses may tell you more than an obvious sign ever could, because your intuition often speaks through what your body and emotions recognize before your mind has finished explaining it. Trust yourself enough to listen without immediately demanding certainty. You do not need to know every step ahead of you to recognize when an old way of living has become too narrow, and you do not have to keep carrying something simply because you once promised yourself that you would. There is a quieter kind of power available too when you stop protecting an outdated version of yourself and begin making room for what feels more honest. As this shift unfolds, let your choices come from self-awareness rather than fear, and allow that newly reclaimed energy to show you what deserves your attention next. Keep in mind that this interpretation is general, so it may not perfectly reflect your circumstances. Take what genuinely speaks to you, use it as a point of reflection, and let the rest pass without forcing it to fit. Everyone moves through different experiences, and your own judgment remains more important than any reading. What matters most is whether the message helps you see your situation with greater honesty and compassion. Even when people do not say it aloud, Scorpio, they may recognize something in you that makes them feel safe enough to bring their problems closer. You often notice what others leave unsaid, and when someone needs honest guidance or a steady presence, you may find yourself offering it almost instinctively. But there is an important distinction for you to remember. Being able to carry something does not automatically mean it belongs in your hands, and part of your growth now is learning where compassion ends and responsibility begins. Your curiosity can draw you toward people, conversations, and situations that reveal more than you expected. especially across August 11 and 12. You may discover that an ordinary exchange gives you a new perspective, or that someone's experience quietly challenges an assumption you've been holding on to. At the same time, your awareness of other people's emotions can become a strength only when you resist the urge to manage their choices for them. Someone close to you may come looking for help with a conflict, and your ability to see beneath the surface can be valuable. But remember that understanding someone does not require taking control of their situation or saying everything you think. If that conversation comes, let your honesty be measured by compassion. A sharp observation may be accurate and still cause unnecessary damage if it is delivered without care, especially when the relationship matters deeply to you. You may also find yourself pulled toward learning in a way that feels surprisingly alive, as though one new idea opens a door to another. Rather than trying to keep every responsibility, interest, and obligation moving at once, allow yourself to choose what deserves your attention and let some things remain unfinished without feeling that you have failed. There is value now in bringing order to everything that has been circling through your mind. You have enough awareness to recognize which desires are genuine and which ones may have been shaped by old expectations, fear, or the need to prove something. The message beneath this period is gentle but firm. Some of your energy has been spent trying to repair, understand, or preserve something that was never yours to carry alone. As you begin releasing that burden, space opens for movement that feels less forced and more aligned with who you are becoming. The Chariot speaks to this change through deliberate movement. For Scorpio, its power is not simply about winning or rushing ahead. It is about bringing your conflicting instincts into the same direction and choosing where your energy belongs. What once felt stalled may begin to shift because you are no longer spending the same strength looking backward, and your progress becomes more meaningful when it comes from clarity rather than pressure. You can move with intensity without allowing intensity to control you. Then comes the Star, offering a quieter kind of restoration. This card speaks to the part of you that has learned to protect itself after disappointment, betrayal, or emotional uncertainty, and it reminds you that healing does not require you to become completely unguarded. You can become more open while remaining discerning, and you can rebuild trust without handing your power away. What matters is that the past no longer gets to decide every choice you make in the present. The Ace of Cups brings that lesson into the emotional realm. Rather than promising that a particular person will suddenly return, this card points toward your capacity to feel again without abandoning the boundaries that keep you whole. A sincere conversation, a moment of unexpected tenderness, or simply the realization that your heart is no longer closed in the same way, may become meaningful signs of that inner shift. For you, love becomes healthier when it is allowed to grow from honesty rather than fear, suspicion, or the need to control the outcome. The Seven of Pentacles then asks you to look carefully at what you have been cultivating. Your efforts in work, personal development, or relationships may not produce instant results, but that does not make them insignificant. Sometimes growth becomes visible only after you stop measuring it every moment. Across this period, focus matters more than scattering yourself across every possibility, and patience becomes useful when it is paired with conscious choice rather than passive waiting. Finally, the King of Pentacles brings the reading toward grounded authority. Its message is less about proving that you have succeeded and more about knowing what your time, energy, and abilities are worth. You are learning to build stability without gripping everything too tightly, to accept recognition without depending on it, and to stand firmly in your own value. What you are creating becomes stronger when it is rooted not only in ambition, but in the deeper understanding of what you are no longer willing to sacrifice just to keep everything under control. The King of Pentacles also reminds you that stability begins with recognizing your own value. If you have felt overlooked or underestimated, this period can encourage you to stop waiting for someone else to confirm what you already know about your abilities. For Scorpio, true authority is not about proving that you are the strongest person in the room. It is about becoming secure enough in yourself that you no longer need to control how others perceive your worth. When it comes to your health, Listen closely to what your body is communicating without turning every sensation into something to fear. You may be carrying more emotional tension than you realize, particularly if you've been holding yourself together for everyone else while quietly processing your own concerns. Give yourself room to rest, notice changes in your energy, and respond to what your body genuinely needs rather than ignoring its signals or assuming the worst. The energy around responsibility also encourages you to look at your routines with greater honesty. A routine can create stability when it supports you, but it can become restrictive when you continue following it simply because it feels familiar. Across August 11 and 12, consider whether the structures in your daily life are helping you feel grounded or merely giving you another way to maintain control when what you really need is room to breathe. Your career carries an important theme of self-respect. You may be deeply committed to what you do, and that commitment can become one of your greatest strengths when it is connected to purpose rather than the constant need to prove yourself. Whether you work for someone else or build something of your own, your ability to observe beneath the surface, recognize what matters, and stay focused when circumstances become complicated can help you navigate professional changes with greater confidence. Rather than promising that a promotion or financial reward must arrive, this period is better understood as an opportunity to examine what you are building and whether it reflects your actual ambitions. If you are looking for work, be intentional about where you place your energy, especially in environments where your experience and abilities can genuinely be used. Do not shrink your expectations simply to feel secure, but do not chase recognition that requires you to abandon your values either. The right direction should allow your competence and your sense of self to grow together. Financially, the emphasis is on becoming more conscious of where your resources go and what your choices are really supporting. You may begin to see possibilities that were difficult to notice while your attention was consumed by older worries, and a conversation, idea, or overlooked opportunity could give you another way to think about your circumstances. Your Scorpio instinct to look beneath the surface can serve you well here, especially when you pause before committing and ask whether something genuinely supports your long-term priorities, rather than simply satisfying an immediate desire. Let discernment work alongside confidence. You do not have to distrust every opportunity simply because you have experienced disappointment before. But neither do you need to rush into something because it appears promising at first glance. The strongest choices come from understanding the details, recognizing your emotional reactions, and giving yourself enough space to distinguish genuine potential from the urge to regain control quickly. In love, the desire for stability and mutual commitment becomes especially important. If you're in a relationship, you and your partner may be learning how to protect what you have built, while still allowing each other enough freedom to remain fully yourselves. When misunderstandings appear, emotional maturity does not mean suppressing what you feel. It means being willing to speak honestly without turning vulnerability into a weapon or disagreement into a contest. Your commitment can be powerful because you do not give your heart lightly. But protecting a relationship does not mean carrying every difficult moment alone, and preserving love does not require you to control every outcome. When both people are willing to listen, adjust, and take responsibility for their part, even difficult conversations can become places where trust deepens rather than fractures, allowing the relationship to become more honest, more balanced, and more resilient. In a relationship, the way you show love matters, Scorpio, but so does the space you leave for love to come toward you. You may naturally express devotion through consistency, attention, loyalty, and the willingness to stand beside someone when life becomes difficult, often noticing what your partner needs before they even know how to ask for it. Yet you are also learning that you should not have to carry the emotional weight of a relationship by yourself, especially when doing so slowly turns affection into responsibility. Across August 11 and 12, let yourself notice whether the connection feels reciprocal, not necessarily identical in how each person gives, but balanced enough that both of you can feel seen, respected, heard, and emotionally safe. There is a quiet difference between being deeply committed to someone and feeling that everything depends on you, and recognizing that difference can change the way you experience closeness. The strongest relationships are not held together by passion alone. Even when the attraction between two people runs deep, and the emotional bond feels almost impossible to ignore. Shared hopes, private conversations, ordinary moments, and the sense that you are moving towards something meaningful together can create a much deeper kind of security, especially for someone like you who needs to know that emotional intimacy has substance beneath it. You may value the moments when neither person has to perform, explain everything, or defend their feelings because there is already enough trust for silence to feel comfortable. If things have felt strained lately, do not assume that distance automatically means love has disappeared. Sometimes two people simply become so focused on protecting themselves that they forget to reach for each other. What looks like emotional distance on the surface can sometimes be two people waiting for reassurance, each hoping the other will make the first move. If you have been going through a difficult period with your partner, there may be value in making the first sincere move when your heart tells you it is worth making. Your pride may argue that you have already given enough, that the other person should be the one to reach out, or that making another effort somehow puts you at a disadvantage. You may even find yourself mentally reviewing old conversations, remembering who apologized first, who compromised more, or who stayed when things became difficult, as though love could be measured by keeping a careful record. But love is not a ledger where every gesture has to be counted and compared, and vulnerability does not make you weaker. Sometimes it simply means you are choosing honesty over the need to win. Reaching towards someone does not mean abandoning your standards either. It means giving an honest connection a chance to meet you halfway, while still paying attention to whether that effort is returned. If you are single, this is a useful moment to become more truthful about what you actually want from intimacy. You may have experienced situations where attraction was present, but emotional consistency was missing, or where someone seemed promising before quietly drifting away. And those experiences can leave you questioning whether opening yourself again is worth the risk. It is understandable if part of you now wants stronger guarantees before becoming emotionally invested, because disappointment can teach you to look for warning signs long before you allow yourself to feel hopeful. Rather than filling that uncertainty with romantic fantasies or trying to predict what someone might eventually become, give yourself permission to observe what feels real, what feels reciprocal, and what kind of connection allows you to remain fully yourself. The right question may not be whether someone can make you feel intensely, but whether their presence gives you enough emotional safety to remain honest while that intensity develops. If someone is currently entering your life, and the connection feels promising, there is no need to force it into a definition before it has had room to breathe. Let trust develop through what you actually experience together, rather than trying to predict where the relationship must go or searching every interaction for proof of what comes next. Pay attention to consistency, not only chemistry, and notice whether the person remains present when the conversation becomes more honest, or when the excitement of something new begins to settle. For you, emotional depth becomes healthier when it grows gradually, because rushing towards certainty can sometimes be another way of trying to protect yourself from the vulnerability of not knowing. You do not have to reveal every hidden layer at once. Sometimes intimacy becomes stronger precisely because two people allow trust to unfold naturally, one honest moment at a time. At home, the atmosphere may feel softer, as old misunderstandings become easier to discuss without immediately reopening every wound connected to them. You may notice that a calmer conversation can accomplish more than silence ever could, especially when everyone is willing to listen without preparing a defense or deciding in advance who is right. There may be moments when simply acknowledging what someone felt is more healing than trying to explain why they should have felt differently. Your presence can help create that atmosphere, particularly because you may be able to sense tensions that other people overlook. But remember that supporting your family does not require you to absorb every emotion in the room or become responsible for resolving every unresolved issue. You can help create peace without becoming the person who must maintain it at all costs. You may also begin recognizing patterns around trust, silence, closeness, and communication that have existed within your family for a long time. Perhaps certain emotions were rarely spoken about. Perhaps difficult conversations were avoided until they became impossible to ignore. Or perhaps caring for one another was traditionally expressed through practical actions rather than vulnerable words. Seeing those patterns does not mean blaming anyone for them. It simply gives you the opportunity to decide which ones you want to carry forward and which ones can change with you. Your own growth can quietly influence the people around you, especially when they see you responding with greater honesty instead of repeating an old reaction simply because it is familiar. Sometimes changing a family pattern does not require a dramatic confrontation. It begins with one person choosing to communicate differently when the familiar response would have been easier. Let your boundaries remain part of that openness. You can offer practical support without stepping into another person's emotional life, and you can receive care without feeling that you immediately owe something in return. You can love someone deeply while still allowing them to have their own lessons, choices, and responsibilities, just as you are allowed to have yours. After periods of distance, even a small moment of genuine connection can matter, and when you allow yourself to participate without judgment while still protecting your inner space, family relationships can gradually become places where trust feels less fragile and belonging feels more natural. The deeper shift is not about becoming available to everyone. It is about becoming more intentional about where you place your heart, your energy, and your presence, allowing closeness to grow where there is enough honesty and mutual care to sustain it. Your energy may feel fairly steady across August 11 and 12, although there could be moments when restlessness begins to rise beneath the surface, almost like a current moving through otherwise calm water. You may appear composed while something inside you is still processing a conversation, an unresolved thought, or an emotion you have not quite decided how to name. If you notice irritation building, especially when something touches a sensitive place you have been trying to ignore, give yourself a moment before responding and ask what the feeling is actually trying to tell you. Scorpio, your intensity is not the problem. What matters is whether you allow that intensity to choose your next move for you. Sometimes the strongest response is the one you make after giving yourself enough space to understand what you are actually feeling. Because once you can name the emotion beneath the reaction, you have much more freedom over what happens next. One quality worth cultivating now is your instinct to create something meaningful from what you have experienced. You may feel drawn toward a project, business idea, personal goal, or personal change that gives your ambition somewhere real to go. And that drive can become powerful when it is connected to purpose rather than the need to prove yourself or demonstrate that you were right all along. There is a difference between pursuing something because it genuinely matters to you and pursuing it because you need its outcome to settle an old doubt inside yourself. Instead of scattering your energy across every possibility that catches your attention, choose something that matters deeply enough for you to stay committed when the excitement becomes quieter and the work becomes less glamorous. Your ability to keep moving through complexity can become an advantage when you give that persistence a clear direction, especially when you allow patience to work alongside your natural intensity, rather than treating every pause as a sign that you have lost momentum. At the same time, pay attention to any sense of inner emptiness that success or productivity cannot seem to fill. You can be intensely focused on improving your circumstances, solving problems, or building something impressive while still feeling disconnected from the part of you that needs meaning, reflection, and emotional truth. Sometimes the busiest periods are the ones that leave the least room to hear yourself, and that is when an unexplained sense of distance from your own life can quietly appear. This is not necessarily a sign that something is wrong. It may simply be an invitation to create more room for silence, reflection, nature, creativity, prayer, or whatever helps you feel connected to something deeper than your immediate responsibilities. For you, spiritual nourishment is less about escaping reality and more about understanding why the life you are building matters to you, what values are underneath your ambitions, and whether the person creating that life still feels present inside it. If you are studying or developing a new area of knowledge, let yourself respect the pace of the process. You do not have to master everything immediately, and there is value in allowing curiosity to lead you from one discovery to another, without turning every lesson into a test of your worth or another standard you have to meet perfectly. Some of the most important understanding develops quietly, after you have spent enough time with an idea to see what it changes inside you and how it begins to alter the way you approach familiar situations. You may even discover that something you once considered a simple fact becomes much more complicated when you examine it from another perspective. and that deeper understanding can be more valuable than having a quick answer. Enjoy the process of learning, especially when it challenges assumptions you once considered settled, because knowledge becomes more meaningful when it changes the way you see yourself and the world around you, not simply when it gives you more information to carry. In terms of compatibility, Taurus energy can offer an interesting contrast to your intensity, encouraging you to slow down and recognize that not every form of progress requires force. Their steadiness may remind you that security can sometimes be created through consistency rather than constant vigilance, and that simply staying present can be its own form of strength. Cancer may create a space where emotional honesty feels easier, reminding you that vulnerability can strengthen confidence rather than weaken it, particularly when you sense that your feelings will be received without judgment. Capricorn can bring a grounded perspective to your ambitions, helping you connect long-term intentions with practical action and reminding you that powerful goals become more sustainable when they are given structure. With any of these connections, the value lies less in expecting a guaranteed outcome and more in noticing what the interaction reveals about the way you relate, trust, communicate, and grow. Because sometimes another person becomes meaningful simply by showing you a part of yourself that was waiting to be understood. As you move through this period, keep returning to your own discernment. You do not have to accept every interpretation simply because it sounds meaningful. And you do not have to reject something simply because it challenges you. Take what helps you understand yourself more clearly and allow the rest to remain where it is, without forcing a connection that does not feel genuine. Your intuition becomes more useful when it works alongside reflection, experience, and honest self-awareness, because intuition can point towards something important, while discernment helps you decide what to do with what you have noticed. Give yourself permission to pause between feeling and action, especially when an old emotional pattern tries to make a familiar decision on your behalf. And as you continue forward, let the choices that feel most aligned with your deeper values have more weight than the noise surrounding you. Because the direction you are building is shaped not by one dramatic decision, but by the quiet accumulation of choices you continue making with greater awareness.